Welcome everyone, I'm Billy, I'm down in Dungannon here today to look at Trevor Haydock's collection of vehicles. Morning Trevor.
Good morning Billy.
Okay Trevor, so tell us a bit about your background, how you get into this here, how you got involved in vehicles.
There's another gentleman that was in the IRTE and there was a Jim Main, and he happened to say to me one day, he was here, he says, I've been approached by a lady down next Belfast that her husband passed away and he was restoring at a wee Bedford lorry. And he drove out to the lady's house at Stonyford. So we walked into the garage and the Bedford, what we see up here behind me, is sitting in a raw state, maybe a better way.
Not restored.
Not restored.
No, needing restored.
Oh, needing restored. There was tools around it and spanners around it, just as he had left it.
My goodness.
And passed away. So I had a chat with the lady and she says to me, she says, if you're interested in this lorry, she says, I would like to see that restored and completed. But you're not to sell it to make any monetary reward out of it. She says, I would like you to keep it and restore it. Pressure was on me. And I thought about it, so saying, this will not be easy, this will be challenging. Where I never had done a vehicle or restored a vehicle of this calibre before. Oh no.
You're up for the challenge.
Up for the challenge. So that was okay. I agreed the price with her and I said I would come back, leave all the tools and sort through it, and Jim would come with me and give me a hand. We'd sort it out and we'd take it home, and I promised her I wouldn't sell it. So I had it up and going eventually a couple of years before we got it put together and got it sorted out. And I rang her and I said to her, says I, right, she said, I'll speak to my daughter, and she come round and she'll lift me, she says, and we'll go and visit the lorry and see it. I had it out at the front of my house, nicely polished up, and the two of them broke down in tears.
I would believe that now. A big emotional thing to see it, what their husband and father had started, see it finished.
I kept my promise, which I'm glad I did do, and it did me no harm. So that was how I got into this maybe a rat race.
That was the first.
Yes, that was the very first one.
And how many lorries would you have now in your collection? How many lorries have you?
Well, if you look around here, there's a few lorries here, William, and if you can count, if you went to school, you can count as well. But there's a whole lot of lorries here that you don't know about, and my wife doesn't even know about, stashed away.
Jeez, Trevor, you're getting yourself on the bar here.
Never out of it. Never out of it, Billy. Oh dear. Oh. So, as I say, there's a few things in the pipeline yet, and I have to introduce another one now and again when I want one completed.
Okay, Trevor, tell us what the unique points of this lorry. I take it you restored this lorry, or did you buy this like this?
No. I restored this lorry completely. This is a 1966 Commer. It's got a 6-cylinder petrol engine in it. Petrol engine, yes.
That's very unusual.
Absolutely. It has also got an auto lube system on it.
Yes.
And it's got an underfloor tipping body and a very expensive plank.
Aluminium body.
Yes, and that would have been all very unique to that era of 1960s or those years in the 60s, because another lube would never have been thought of then, really.
The expense of it.
Absolutely, absolutely expensive.
An underfloor tipping gear would be unusual.
Oh, it would be, yes. And more so the petrol engine, leave it more 6-cylinder petrol. I don't know what.
See, there's a lot of chrome in this.
Yes. Apparently the man that ordered this lorry wanted the chrome mirror arms on it, chrome bumper and chrome flap on the front of it here, and the auto lube, and the 6-cylinder petrol. He spec'd all that himself. And that would have been a very expensive lorry with that type of body, planked aluminium body on it in that era.
Hey Trevor, we've now moved on up, and this is a Dodge, am I right?
Yeah, this is a Dodge, a Commando range, and it came with a V8 540 Perkins engine in it. Turbo.
V8?
Yes.
And that, what's that, Larry, 12 ton?
That's 12 tonner.
Why would that have such a high powered engine, Trevor, for
Well,
such a low weight?
Came from Leicestershire Fire Authority.
Oh, right.
And they would have spec'd that to
Very high spec.
Yes, unreal.
Right.
And full air brakes on it.
For 12 tonne?
Yes, for 12 tonne full air brakes.
Right. What age is that lorry?
That there lorry is 82, 1982. That was a high spec for those days as well. And look at the body on it.
See that, an element of the body yet again.
You know what I mean?
For safe weight.
Yes, and that has another lube bonnet as well.
My goodness.
That has got all the toys and bits and pieces added onto it.
College operator couldn't afford it this back
No,
then,
not in that time. Not only the fire authority or a government department or something like that would have been able to do that job then.
That's a much smaller lorry now, Trevor, we're on to here.
Yes, this is rated as a wee Leyland, about 2 tonner. This is a model Leyland 90 with a wee 4-cylinder standard engine in it.
Oh, lies on its side.
No,
was it straight up and down?
Stands up straight. I tell you in simple terms, if you've ever saw a grey Ferguson bonnet and with a gold-bellied engine in it,
yes,
of the Ferguson range, that is actually the same engine as in that tractor, with the exception of a heater plug in every cylinder to start it, make it easier to start it, and balance weights on the crank. But there was poor engineering in some respects around that vehicle, and that's why it didn't do well.
It didn't work.
No.
You never see these about. Is that a rare vehicle?
That's very rare. I'm led to believe that there's the only one in existence up and running. There's a couple of other 3 in the mainland in England about, but they're not restored or not even running.
Not running?
No.
Right. So that's fairly unique vehicle then.
And incidentally, I had that across the water at a rally one time, and they came back and a man rang me. He must have saw the phone number on the thing, and he wanted to buy it. And he tormented the life out of me for months. Till I finished up one day, I had to be cheeky and tell him to
go away.
He was going to come over with an open checkbook for it. So that maybe give you an idea of the value of it. This is an odd trailer here, hooked into the back of this Bedford TL here, because it is unique. It has
the coupling on it.
You see a funny type coupling on it there.
Yeah.
Well, they made that's. Some people call it a Scammell type coupling.
Yes, that's what I would have known.
Yes, but Scammell, yes, made an automatic coupling, but they also, Hans, another company made something similar to coupling like that there, on Taskers, which that trailer is. That's
on the mud flaps.
Yes, Taskers, and that's their coupling in there.
Right.
But all the 3 couplings were interchangeable. They were wise enough to keep the whole thing near enough the same spec.
Right.
So they're all interchangeable. If you'd have come with a different type of Scammell coupling on and into a Tasker's trailer, there was no problem.
Right. Well, that has to be nearly one of the ends of the last of the Bedfords. Would that be right?
This type of coupling here was started off in the 1930s.
Right.
And you saw this more so in round small vehicles around dockyards and ports and things like that, with this type of wheat
trailers in and out all the time.
Exactly.
So that was for speed.
In the late 70s, that stopped. That type of coupling wasn't with modern day.
End of life.
End of life. And the MOD was the only user of that up into the early 80s. That type of coupling, and that's why that coupling is on that tractor unit, because that came from the ex-MOD, that vehicle there. That was a complete restoration as well. That wasn't good cab wise, and that's actually a new cab shell that was put on that. I put on that.
You put a different cab on?
I put the same cab on, but a new cab shell.
Right, so that's turned out very well, so it has.
Yeah.
That vehicle, that's turned out really well.
Then Bedford went out of production a short time after that there, and AWD, which was supposed to be all-wheel drive, but all the smart Alex in the motor trade one thing I called it a working disaster. I seem to recall getting a phone call from you a number of years back. Yes. One day about a certain vehicle was in a yard where you were.
Yes, that's right. That was said in Atkinson.
That's right.
We'll see this lorry later on. Trevor has it restored. And it's a very rare lorry, it turns out. Trevor will be able to tell us a wee bit about it here now. It's a rarity. You went over to England, Trevor, with that lorry, and someone was able to tell you it was one of 14.
I took that lorry in 2019 till one of the biggest commercial vehicle rallies in England, in Cheshire. When I arrived, you were told to go to the group of 7 Atkinson vehicles. There's a wee gazebo, we're in a circle, and there's a gazebo in the middle of it. And I was told to park there. And this gentleman came out and he says, "Trevor, where did that come from?" Says "This is a Northern Ireland lorry that I restored." "Oh," he says, "right." He says, "That's interesting," he says. He says, "That there is pretty rare." Says "How do you know this?" He says, "I'm an ex-7 Atkinson employee." He says, "I worked on the management team," he says, "on the technical department, along with my colleagues. And when the factory was closing down, we took all the records with us." So he takes the chassis number off the plate, writes it down on a wee piece of paper, and he says, "I'll be back to you before you go home tomorrow." And he says, "We'll have the records of that." That was okay. Sunday afternoon, he comes and waving a piece of A4 paper, and he says, "Do you know anything about the history of this?" Says "Northern Ireland Electricity Board was the first people to buy this vehicle from Cahill Engineering, who was the 7 Atkinson distributor in Belfast." Yes. So I said, "Well, that's fine." He says, "That's okay." He says, "Dead on, not a problem." He says, "We have better news than that for you." He says, "There's the piece of paper." He says, "The day it was built, who supplied it, who the end customer and user was." And he says, "We only built 14 of these."
Very low numbers.
Yes.
Right.
I was taken back a wee bit, and I gathered up myself. I said to him, "Right, where's the other 13 of it to? Or do you know anything about them?" He says, "They are non-existent."
That's the only one left.
That's the only one left. A 28-ton lightweight tractor unit.
Yes. Known as a 300.
Yes, a 300 series, yes, with an international engine in it and a ZF gearbox in it.
So that's a fairly rare lorry.
Yes, that's very rare.
Yeah, and only one left.
Only one left.
It's nice to have that.
I'm Robert Cahill. Me and my brother Jim took up the said agency in 1982, and I handled the sales at that time. Well, the first visit we had from the sales people from St Atkinson, who wanted to see a customer of ours in Bleary, Craigavon. So we had a loose end, and we decided to go to the Northern Ireland Electricity Service Yard at Kilcavey, where we met the transport manager there, Mr Sam Madole, and we got chatting away over a cup of tea, and he says to us, do you supply a 28 tonner? And he says, "We do." And he turned around and says, "Get us one." And there was no negotiations about price at this minute in time. So he gave us an order for a 28 tonner St Atkinson tractor unit. So lo and behold, in a fortnight's time, the tractor unit arrived, and we delivered it to Kilcavey, and we negotiated a price, and that was our first sales. We sold the lorry for £20,500. There was actually 3 of them in Northern Ireland. One for the Fermanagh County Library had one, and Sunblessed Bakeries had one. And they trunked bread to Coleraine every night in it. And we built up a good relationship with those 2 customers as well. It's in mint condition today. It's a credit to Trevor Haydock. Well, I couldn't believe it. Everything's perfect on it, every nut and bolt. She's as good today as the day I sold her.
My name is Jerry Boyle. I worked in Dennison's in Ballyclare, a Volvo dealer. I started there in 1975, and out around the country, sold a lot of stuff. But in this particular question, Finley's here. John Finley was a very good customer of ours. But this particular lorry here, the Volvo F7, is 224 brake horsepower. It's a 6x4. It has a T-ride suspension, which was the heavier type. It cost in the region around, with body and all on it, paint and all, about 27,500. I mean, that lorry today, 127,000 wouldn't buy it. I just came into Trevor's yard here now, because I'd heard about the refurbishing job he does now, and I was really surprised how well it turned out. It really is a gem now, and I hope Stephen Finley keeps it for a long time, because it is worth keeping. It's one of those trucks, they don't make them like that anymore.
Okay, right folks, we've now moved into the workshop, so we have Trevor here is going to kindly agree to talk us through some of his restoration, what he does to the vehicles, and he's here at the moment working on this vehicle. Trevor, can you please tell us what this vehicle is and what you're doing, what the process is?
Billy, this is a 1995 Mercedes-Benz MK 1834 tractor unit under complete restoration from the ground upwards.
So that's a complete vehicle then, Trevor?
Oh yes. You can
driving this lorry?
This vehicle was driving and drove in here, and it was actually tested and put away for a number of years in storage.
Yes.
And as you can see, the fifth wheel plate and the subframe is here. It shows the extent of rust and the extent of the renovation that has been here. And the reason why you see all this covered up here, and it's very well stripped down, is that this was completely stripped down to the bare chassis rails.
Axles and all removed.
Axles and all out. All the bracketry you see on the here chassis was stripped off it and was sent away and got shot blasted. It was very, very rusty. Something similar to what you're seeing here.
And that fifth wheel.
Yes. So the result of that there is then I didn't really want to be taking out the good air pipes and the wire loom. The shot blasters sometimes are not too easy on the...
Not sympathetic.
No, that's a better way of putting it. On the wire loom and the air pipes on it. So it didn't need the wire loom replaced on it, nor the air pipes. So I wrapped that there all up nicely while it went the shot blaster. Yes. And I got a coat of paint on it then after he had shot blasted, just to keep the sort of rust at bay, basically. Where we are now is I'm on the way upwards here, putting this back together again.
Yes.
After getting a sort of a mist coat of undercoat and a rust inhibitor on it and a minor coat of gloss on it.
Yes.
This will be the colour it will be.
That blue, it'll be that blue.
This would originally start off as factory grey.
Yes.
But I wanted to change the colour on it.
You're putting in your own colours, the
Yes.
same as I said in Atkinson.
Exactly, yes. So we're now at the stage of putting the thing together again before it goes back to the painter.
Yes. Are you doing a trial fit here? Of the
So
fifth
what I
wheel
have done
here?
is just already put the subframe on here and the fifth wheel plate here, and I'm just lining up the bolts, making sure everything fits here before it goes there. When it comes back, this here will be shot blasted and painted as well. So I don't want to be knocking the good paint work and making sure everything fits like I'd love whenever I come back with it again.
Right.
So I'm going to try on the set of skids here that I made here for it.
The skids, for anybody in the lorry world will maybe know, skids are when you go into a trailer, if the lorry's not at the right height, you go in and the trailer can ride up on these skids. You'll see them in a moment who put them on, so it can connect itself onto the fifth wheel plate. So I'll give Trevor a hand to lift these skids up here now and you'll see them going on.
I pull it round now. Now this is metric bolts.
Metric bolts?
Yes, and you'll remark this is a 10.9 bolt.
Oh, hardened bolt?
Yes, because this will be under pressure.
The loading.
And strain. So you have to leave a bolt that'll withstand the pressure and the strain.
And mild steel one, but
yes, too soft. So we line up the bolt here. Yes, and this is going to fit, actually, believe it or not.
Oh, lovely.
We'll be coming back off again, and that'll be sent to the shot blaster. And
did you galvanise anything like that, Trevor, or you just paint it?
no, this here will be shell blasted here now is the next process with this, and it'll be sent to the galvanizers.
You'll galvanise
Yes,
these,
galvanise,
yes.
and then it possibly maybe get a coat of paint then after that.
Yes.
Maybe not. Depends on what way the galvanizing finishes up and what way it looks.
It just means it's well protected then. it's
Exactly.
not Rust.
Rust. Rust is a big problem in
It's
this
the, it's
preservation.
the enemy of the preservation.
Oh, absolutely.
game, so it is.
I detest it. Absolutely terrible.
When you're doing a restoration, what's your favourite part, and what's your least favourite part in a restoration?
No, we'll start with the bad bits first, I think. The least bit I don't like about any restoration is the taking down of it, because you're faced with rusty bolts, corrosion of components, and it lets you see how far the whole thing has deteriorated and what you're faced with, and all sorts of thoughts running through your head.
Am I doing the right thing here?
Yes. At the point of no return then, when you get to that stage,
Yes.
and you can't go back, so you have to keep going forward, and then you're faced with supply and locating components and bolts
Parts.
and nuts and all this thing. But the bit I do like about it is when you have overcome all these solutions and add problems that you have overcome, and you're on the way up again.
Yes.
It gives you great satisfaction, and you look forward to the day that it's running out to the door.
I was going to say that
Complete.
the big satisfaction has to be when you can drive it up the road. That has to be a tremendous amount
And
of
bring tears to
satisfaction.
your eyes.
Yes, I would understand that. I've been involved with cars and things, and
Yes.
it's nice when you get them up and running
Yes.
again. It's great.
Maybe this is a better labour of love or something. I don't know what you want to call this.
A process like this, Trevor, an in-depth one like this, typically what sort of time period? I don't mean hours, I mean, like, would this be, do you do this in a year? Would you do this in 5 years?
The biggest problem with you have is sometimes, depending on the vehicle, is the quality of the restoration, what you want to be doing or how you want it to finish up. Some people maybe go halfway as that and don't spend maybe as much money and time or thorough.
Paint over a lot of
Yes,
hidden.
and that is not the answer in a restoration job like this here.
Right
Because
down.
if you don't do it right as you go along, it's a waste of time and money.
Yes.
And that depends on the source of replacement components that's corroded and eat away with corrosion. But in this case here, this is a fairly straightforward vehicle here. This will take about probably 12 months from you start it till you have it running out to the door.
Oh, that's
when you
not
take into
so bad.
consideration looking around for replacement bits and giving it out to the shop blaster and the painter and things like that.
Well, I would imagine being a Mercedes-Benz, it's a world product.
Yes,
so
it is.
there would be a lot of them out there, and you could maybe draw from different countries, different parts.
Well, you should be fit to do that, but what I have discovered with this particular vehicle is that there's a few wee minor things that you think you should be fit able to get are no longer serviced by Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, because of the age of it?
Yes. Bear in mind this is 95. And we're now living in 2021. The manufacturer only guarantees parts for 10 years after end of production. This is near the end of the production line of this model.
Yes, because 97 was your Actros,
That's
wasn't
right,
it?
That's right.
Yeah, Actros
so
replaced it.
this is coming near the end of the line, and now the production of parts are not there, not serviced. And you can't blame them because
yes.
it wouldn't be asked for.
And there was no crossover from
No,
this model
no,
to the
no.
Actros,
This is a completely different from the Actros.
Cross completely, yeah.
But what I found here, a few wee niggly pieces are needed for it, and you thought they would have had them, but
they don't.
they didn't.
Out of production.
Out of production. Parts can be difficult at times, but I have transport supplies would have done business with them down the years, a good number of years.
Yes.
And they've been very good to me. They've sourced parts like valves and Bendix. You'll find, and Wabco is standard fitting on the leg of this chassis.
Tractor unit.
Yes.
Yes.
For rotor brake linings and things like that on it. And that's, they're very good at that.
Well, I've experienced, I'm doing a lay on this, you know, at the
Yes.
moment you're helping me with it off and on, and I needed parts and I got some valves from America.
Yes.
So they do try to source where they can now.
Yes.
IRTE in particular has been very good.
You saw them bringing in me some parts earlier on there.
Yes.
And one of them was actually a valve for this here, and which I thought would have been sort of obsolete now.
Okay.
No problem to them.
Oh.
They know what they can do, and they're very, very good at sourcing parts.
Yes.
And very, very reliable at supplying them.
Good. No, well, it makes it easier if you can get the part.
And on time as well, which makes a big difference.
It does.
I rang before 10 o'clock this morning looking at those parts, and there you have it. An
Here
hour and
now.
a half later, I have the parts here on me. So
Brilliant service.
That's not holding me back.
No,
Absolutely
brilliant
great.
service.
They're on top of the game. They know what they're talking about.
When it's finished, we
Yes.
talked about its rewarding and everything else. What's been your most challenging?
Well, all these restorations are challenging.
Yes, but I would say some more than others,
Yes,
possibly.
by all means.
Like everything in life.
Yes, and that depends on a whole lot of factors. How long it's been out of service, back again to the supply of parts, and different other factors control that. But the most challenging one has been recently was the John Finlay concrete pipes Volvo F7.
And most rewarding?
Well, I had great satisfaction in doing Finlay's lorry, and when the day it went out and I was able to hand it back to him, it was more than rewarding. I just couldn't believe that I was even capable of doing it, an old man like me.
Well,
should have had the boots hung up long ago.
Moving a bit forward then, is there any vehicle in this collection that you don't have that you would like to have, or have you got all the vehicles really?
No, I don't have any. I don't have got them all, and I don't think I need any more. Don't think so. But I would love to have bought or got my hands on a Volvo F16.
Oh, and what's unique about an F16, Trevor?
Well, an F16 came in 1987. It was introduced in 1987 by Volvo.
Because that F range was what, 81 that?
That's right, that's right. And that developed it into the F16 in 87, and that's a 16-litre engine with 470 horsepower.
Which would be very powerful for its day.
Absolutely more than powerful for its day.
Big engine, that's a big engine.
But the unique thing about it was that the injector pump was on the right-hand side of the engine, not on the left as conventional lorries, as you would know, or diesel then. It's the only lorry that I ever saw with an injector pump on the right. Yes, exactly.
And is that a lorry you would definitely be looking for?
I would be looking for that.
Well, tell me this, do you find the vehicles, do they find you, or do you set out with a plan that what the vehicles are you want? How do you actually just work, or what happens?
I always like to have something that's unique or scarce, maybe, or going to come a scarce model, maybe a better way of putting it. Yes. Or nearly exhausted, or there wasn't that term many manufactured in this era.
Yes, something about all.
Yes, something a bit odd. Occasionally, by accident, you stumble over these vehicles. Yes. Traveling around the country and going across to rallies and different visits. And
You do go down with
yes.
rallies.
Yes, and you may come across something there that you see a for sale sign on it, and you just say, right, that's pretty unique. Maybe I should have that. Right. And you say to yourself, no, I don't think I should have it at all. And sometimes I get myself into trouble by saying yes.
That's okay, Trevor. We're looking at trucks from back here from the 20s right through to trucks into the 80s you have here. Do you think the trucks of today, do you think those trucks will be preserved for the future? Do you think in 50 years' time will there be preserved trucks from 2020?
No, I don't honestly think the modern day truck as we see it running up and down the road today will take a place in the like of here or anything like that, because of the number of reasons and factors that will control that. One of them is there's too much plastic on them, too much electronics and technology built into it. Yes. You can't do a thing now unless you have a laptop, probably a computer to plug it in.
Software.
Yes, to plug into it. The manufacturer will probably not be about to back that up in 10 years' time even, yes, or supply parts for that.
Parts nowadays, if I can come in there, parts departments today are run very, very efficiently by computers, and business are run by accountants. And
Right.
before they would have carried a lot of parts, and if it didn't sell, it was just kept on the shelf.
That's right.
I don't think that will happen
No.
going forward.
They're not encouraged to keep parts any more in quantity and have obsolete parts lying on the shelf now.
And they're very specific, these electronic parts sometimes are specific to a chassis number, and
Yes.
they must be programmed from the manufacturer.
Exactly.
I can't see the manufacturer wanting to do that for a 50-year-old truck.
No,
for the
no,
future. I
no,
don't
it's
think
not
they'd be
going to
able do
happen.
it.
It's not going to happen.
So the answer to that really, we're agreed. I don't think they'll be preserving
No,
trucks
no,
the same as what we're
definitely
on.
not.
Some of these lorries, as we were saying, Trevor, they're not that easy driven. They've crash gearboxes, and you know, the modern technology, the truck does a lot for the driver. There's a lot of driver aids on it, especially over the last 10 years of the involvement of the lorry. And some of the old technology, obviously crash gearboxes are back in with 2 pedals here. They've took the sinker mesh out to speed up the gear change. What do you think of the modern truck? Have you been in many of them?
Yes, the modern day truck, you have to believe in this technology, and it's a progression, another step forward to another level of where we have been with older trucks. It's the next couple of levels up.
Yes.
And as I say, yes, it's good that there's new technology of driver aids.
For safety,
Yes,
you know, stop them crashing into each other. We're heading for the autonomous truck.
yes, automatic, more or less automatic gearbox as such.
Yes.
At the bottom, end of the day, your granny could nearly drive a modern day truck.
Oh, you
It would
could.
go-
You're not really driving it, you're
No.
keeping it company.
Exactly. You're steering it maybe down the road the right direction. No, don't really. Not really. Not really. But it's good to see progression and down the years, like.
Oh, it's the way it has to
Has-
go.
has to
and-
happen.
And as we're
Has to.
saying, different fuel sources.
Yes.
You know, although they're working on these e-fuels at the moment, so they are. And if they work, then we'll be able to burn other fuels, no emissions, and
Yes.
that'll be good to clean the world up.
Clean up the whole act. And it's good to see, and this is one of the reasons why we should be encouraging young technicians into this thing via the IRTE, because this is all changing. The IRT, I had to join the IRT to progress my business and do what I was doing down the years.
Yes.
And it did me no harm, and it'll certainly do the modern day man no harm.
Absolutely.
He needs to be in there learning all about this. This collection started with maybe through more accident of my wife doing maybe the wrong thing at the wrong time. Or I just had no intention maybe of going into this the way it's fully blown collection the way it is now. She went to Belfast one day, and for some unknown reason she went to a toy shop, and she took home one of these wee Matchbox models, and that started that carry on. And then she took it home, then she got the notion, there was actually a wee blue breakdown truck, and she must have sent it away in the quiet and got it, the name put on it, and presented me. I don't know whether it was her birthday or what it was or why I got it, but that started the ball rolling, and maybe a better way of putting it. And I just took a fancy to these things, and if I was in a toy shop, I was like a young child, you know what I mean, bringing back my youth. And the next thing was I bought one for myself then, and something that I fancied, and it just developed from there, and it just escalated, maybe a better way of putting it. Basically then, when we had it started and going, it just blew up, and we'd go to an old rally and go to an old place and one thing and another, and a young fella that used to be a salesman in Denison Commercials, Hugh Smith, he got into these models and one thing and another, and he used to call with me as well, and he had a boot full of models and of some local hauliers here, and I bought a model off Hugh and I bought a model off somewhere else, and the thing just grew and grew and grew. And then I thought to my wife, I said to her one day, I says, hey, you know, my father had a car accident, says, hey, maybe we should open a wee museum or do something here and give this back to the blind. You can do something for the blind. So this is how really this collection escalated. So we were able to give it a donation to the blind. The people come and visit here, and as I say, that's how we finished up with this here now at the minute. This is a 1917 Sunbeam motorbike. I suppose this was a progression from walking or for horseback or whatever it was, but pretty, and as compared with nowadays motorbikes, is pretty primitive and crude, but it done the same job. It's better than walking, I suppose. It goes. I haven't had it going this 2 years. I had it before I put it up in the loft here. I had it going and riding around the house. Goes perfectly, and even the horn works. This is my favourite piece in the whole collection. This is an Austin J40 child's pedal car. It's of the 1949. This was produced by the disabled Welsh miners in association with the Austin Motor Company as for young children. You could have went into an Austin dealership or distributorship in those days and bought that in 1949 for £21, which probably was a lot of money in those days. But this today is a fairly valuable thing. It's got very, very scarce, like a whole lot of things. And this could be into the region of £5,000 value today. It got a replica of a sort of, I suppose, an engine in it here with 4 spark plugs. The battery in it here, you could put a wee battery in it, and the wee battery lit up the lights and sounded the horn. It has pneumatic tyres on it, and I bought this here across the water in maybe not so good a condition as it is now, and totally took it down to pieces and restored it a good number of years back. Paid a considerable number of money for it, but it sort of paid off. Wouldn't it be nice to be back to childhood again?
Okay folks, that concludes our video. So does a Trevor Sears Classic Collection. I would advise you all to come and check it out yourselves in the near future. Hope you've enjoyed it.